Hey everyone, what's going on? This is Cubs fan Han here to do another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video. And let me give a quick shout out to my friends over at gaming-fans.com. Go ahead and check them out. They're also on Twitter at gamingfansdfn. And today, I am going to be doing the first in a string of character reviews where I'm going to give an in-depth look at a particular character in the game. And usually I'm going to do these based off of your requests. So which characters do you want to see an in-depth review on? Please let me know down in the description. I've got a Discord server that I have all of my subscribers on that want to be there. And we discuss the game, and we also have a channel called Video Requests. And so please come and join me. Feel free to let me know which characters you want to see these reviews on. And then I will do my best to get to as many of them as I can. And today, the first character that I am going to be doing is Death Trooper. And I am really excited to be showing you Death Trooper. He's actually a character that I don't have farmed very well. I've got him unlocked and all of that. But I haven't really used him because at first I was very focused on light side with Jedi. And now I've kind of got that traditional Threxus team going on. So I haven't thrown Death Trooper into my lineup. But in doing a lot of research on him, and gaining some footage, I have a lot of you who provided footage for me to do this video. Thank you so much, by the way. I realized just how valuable this character is, especially on offense in the arena. This is a very strong character, and one that if you are thinking about farming, I don't think that you'll be disappointed. And so I've been gathering a lot of stats here so that I can show you how this character sits next to all of the other characters in the game. And so to start this off, if you look at Death Trooper's base speed, he's got a speed of 124, which is pretty much right in the middle of the pack. That is 64th out of 122 characters, and this does factor in the new addition of Wicket. When you look at his max damage, which is going to kind of be a loose gauge on how hard he's going to hit, there's a lot more that goes into that, but that is one of the base stats. He's got 8,990 for his max damage, which is 7th out of 122 characters. So he's got some nice damage potential there, and then he's pretty tanky. He does have 25,382 base health, which ranks him 18th out of 122. His protection is at 26,336, which ranks him at 26, but if you combine those, which is I think probably the most valuable gauge, he is at 51,748 protection, which puts him at 25th. So he's going to be in kind of that top fourth of the characters. He's pretty tanky. He's not super tanky, but he's definitely a very tanky character to have. So let's take a look at Death Trooper's kit. He has a very powerful set of abilities. And so let's break down each ability one at a time. So Death Trooper's basic is called Track Down, and it says deal physical damage to target enemy with a 70% chance to inflict daze for 3 turns. If the target enemy was already dazed, stun them for 1 turn. If the target is a rebel, attack again. So this ability is awesome for a basic. 70% is a very high probability to inflict daze, which is one of those debuffs in the arena that is very powerful. And there's a 70% chance to hit it. If you've already got them dazed, then you're going to stun them. And then if you're going against rebel teams, which I know a lot of you are going against rebels all the time, you're going against Chase all the time. A lot of you, especially at the beginning, are going against Biggs and Wedge at the beginning. There's still a lot of rebel characters in the game to go against. And every time you attack one of them, you're going to attack twice. And that's just on the basics, so that's very good. And keep in mind, when you're attacking rebels, you're going to have a 70% chance to inflict daze both times you attack against a rebel. So if you land that both times, you're not going to just inflict daze, you're also going to stun on that basic. So that is very powerful and a very, very useful basic ability. So when using Death Trooper's basic, I would definitely advise you to prioritize rebels wherever possible, because you're going to have the daze and the stun chance increased against those characters, and just the raw damage output. So Track Down, Death Trooper's basic, one of the better basic abilities in this game. Alright, now moving on to Death Trooper's first special ability, which is called Death Trooper Grenade, and this does have a 4-turn cooldown and an Omega upgrade. Deal physical damage to all enemies and dispel all buffs on them with a 70% chance to inflict healing immunity on them for 2 turns. Enemies who were not buffed have their cooldowns increased by 1. This is awesome, and especially when you consider the kind of teams you're going against in the arena right now. A lot of you are having issues perhaps with Chirrut and Baze, and what makes them so tough is that they heal and they heal and they heal. If you have a 70% chance to land that healing immunity on somebody, you are going to make it a lot easier to defeat them when Chase is in that set. Not to mention, you also have a cooldown increase chance here, which is something you have with Darth Nihilus already. And so, when you are able to increase cooldowns, you avoid those special abilities, which really can help give you a leg up in the battle. Alright, and moving on to Death Trooper's second special ability, which is called Terminate, which does have a 3-turn cooldown and an Omega upgrade. Deal physical damage to target enemy. If the target enemy is suffering any debuffs, this attack is guaranteed a critical hit. If there are any defeated enemies, also inflict Death Mark for 2 turns. Targets defeated by Terminate can't be revived. So this is really awesome because a lot of the, especially say you're running this with like a Zeta Nihilus or a Darth Vader with the Zeta, you're going to have a critical hit every time your enemy is suffering a debuff. So if you're using this ability, be sure you are targeting any enemy who has a debuff first and foremost, so you get that guaranteed critical hit. If there are defeated enemies, you inflict Death Mark, which is going to really help you speed through some of those tanks or just solidify these battles. Now, something to note here about this Death Mark is you do have to have a defeated enemy on the other side already. So this isn't going to help you as much in the beginning of the battle. It might be more of, say, a nail in the coffin kind of move. This ability has high damage here. If you take a look at some of these critical hits that these teams are landing, it can be a pretty devastating attack, especially when you factor in that Death Mark that is being inflicted. So, Terminate, very powerful ability, and especially when used properly, it's going to be devastating to the other team. Alright, and then to round out Death Trooper's kit, he does have a unique ability called Krennic's Guard, which does have a Zeta upgrade. And this says, whenever Death Trooper scores a critical hit, he and Director Krennic recover 20% health. Death Trooper also has a 50% chance to gain 100% turn meter whenever Director Krennic takes damage. Director Krennic cannot be critically hit while Death Trooper is alive, and while Death Trooper is active, Imperial Trooper allies have plus 10% health steal. So, alright, there's a lot here. And this is just a sweet Zeta ability if you are running him with Director Krennic. It's totally useless if you don't have Director Krennic. So if you are not going to run Death Trooper with Director Krennic, which is fine, please do not give him a Zeta ability because it will gain you very little. But that said, when you're running this with Director Krennic, this is really cool. He and Director Krennic are going to recover 20% health every time Death Trooper scores a critical hit. And remember, in Death Trooper's kit, he is going to have a guaranteed critical hit on that second special ability anytime he's attacking a debuffed enemy. So you've got that guarantee critical hit right there built into his kit. He's going to be gaining turn meter whenever Director Krennic takes damage. So every time Director Krennic gets hit, Death Trooper is going to have a 50% chance to gain 100% turn meter, which is a pretty high, solid percentage there. And then also, you're going to void critical hits on Director Krennic. So any of those teams that are reliant on critical hits to do high amounts of damage are going to be somewhat neutered just against Director Krennic. So you're going to make him more survivable as well. So if you're not running him with Director Krennic, the only benefit you're going to have from this ability is what happens to Death Trooper. So Death Trooper is going to gain 20% health whenever he scores a critical hit. So that is nice. He's going to gain no turn meter from Director Krennic taking damage because he's not there. And he's not going to give anybody critical hit immunity. But he is going to give Imperial Trooper allies that 10% health steal. So that is Death Trooper's kit. This is a really awesome kit. And on offense, it can do really good work against a lot of different meta teams that are out there right now. Alright, so you're thinking about farming Death Trooper, but you're thinking, what is the cost of the gear grind? And that is something when you're looking at farming any character that everybody is going to worry about. So I've actually compiled a list of every single character in this game, all 122, and their gear needs, and compared them all with each other and then ranked them. So I want to try to get a little bit of a gauge here on how difficult it is to farm Death Trooper. So if you just kind of take a look at his general gear cost here, he needs 3 raid gear, 220 gold gear, 1,420 purple gear, which is maybe where most of the grind will be, and then 420 blue gear, 84 green gear, and 101 white gear. Where does that rank next to everyone else in the game? For purple, he is going to be 14th on the list for most purple gear needed in the game. So this is a very, very tough grind, one of the hardest in the game. Purple and gold combined is going to be 16th in the game. So again, you're going to have a lot of those harder gear pieces to farm in this case. 14th overall in terms of total gear grind. And then specific gear pieces that are in that grind that all of you are going to love farming for Death Trooper are, first of all, the Mark III Carbonti. He needs 200 of those. He also needs 150 Mark V stun guns. So that's definitely on the higher end there. Mark VI the thermal detonators, he needs 100 of those. He needs 60 Mark III projectors. He does need a biotech implant, but only one of those, and a Mark IX Fabritech datapad component, 1 stun cuff, so that's 50 of those Mark III stun cuff salvage, and then a few others. So by and large, on the farm scale, he is higher on the grind, but he's not the worst. He's no General Kenobi by any means, but he is one of the more tanky characters in the game, so traditionally if they're tankier, they're going to be a little bit more of a grind. So you do need to be ready if you're going to look at farming Death Trooper. You do definitely need to be ready for a bit of a gear grind. Now, in considering Death Trooper's arena viability, I'm going to score him very high. This is a very viable toon to use in the arena. He's not meta by any means. There are not very many meta teams that are going to be using Death Trooper. That said, Death Trooper is going to fit into a lot of combinations that are very much able to climb to the top spots in your arena servers on a daily basis. He works very well with Director Krennic, of course, especially with that Zeta ability. He's going to work really well under Thrawn or Darth Vader leadership, especially when both of those have Zeta abilities. He's also going to kind of work pretty well as a plug-and-play player. I've seen him ran under Rex teams. A lot of those times he's going to be with a Shore Trooper as well. There's just a ton of different combinations you can use Death Trooper in. When you're using Director Krennic with him, Director Krennic is a little more dependent on Death Trooper, but Death Trooper is going to be able to branch out and kind of work on his own. So there are just a ton of different combinations you can use him with in the game. In looking at his raid viability, this is where Death Trooper probably has his biggest weakness, because he just really doesn't work in raids. I still have yet to find a really solid place to put Death Trooper in raids. Most people that farm him are going to use him almost exclusively in the arena or Galactic War or that kind of thing. If you disagree, if you have a place to use Death Trooper for raids, please let me know, because I still would like to see it. I know some people have found some kind of use in Phase 2, but almost everybody is going to be using him as a B team or a C team in Phase 2. He's not going to fit into anybody's A team for any of those raid phases. So in terms of raids, not the most viable character. So overall, do you need Death Trooper? That's why you're watching, right? Am I going to farm him, or am I not going to farm him? So let me give you a scale of usefulness here. Ranking from a hard pass, which would be like an Ugnaught, to an essential, which I would say General Kenobi is probably one of those prototypical essential characters that most of you need. I'm going to rank Death Trooper as valuable. he has a very valuable use in this game. If you have the right characters, he is going to be extremely useful in the arena. He's not necessarily meta, and he's not going to work very well in raids, so I'm not going to quite bump him up to essential. That could change depending on meta shifts, but for now, he is very much so a valuable character to have, one that I wish I had, and if you're thinking about farming him and you've got the right team to go around him, do it! Go ahead and farm him, and I really don't think that you'll regret it. As always, thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.